Welcome to
the Sky Podcast.
Exclusive on Spotify.
Season 2!
So, welcome back, Pastor Jasper.
Thank you. That's so fancy. No one really calls me that right now.
I told Scotty a while ago, we have a visitor. His name is Pastor Jasper. And then just thinking about it, I'm like, this name sounds so formal.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And Jasper's like super doesn't sound like who he is.
Bakit?
Why? Because you're all over the world. You're seeing all of these crazy things every single day, from jungle schools to the war in Ukraine. And you mentioned earlier that you're gonna go to India. Like, it's just I don't know what to call it. Wanderlust Jasper, adventurer Jasper,
Homeless Jasper.
Homeless Jasper.
Homeless is fine.
So just to give everybody a background story on Pastor Jasper, we were talking before we started recording. See, Pastor Jasper, in our previous podcast, we featured him for building schools around the city. The jungle.
Right, his
In
jungle
the middle
schools.
of the jungle, gumagawa sila in Palawan ng mga schools when it comes to teachers na parang 500 pesos a month lang ba yung sahod nila, but they wanted to teach talaga. So, you know what? Pastor Jasper was able to raise, after our episode, about 5 million pesos.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Let's
Yeah.
bring it back.
Thank you for
Make
sharing
more
your
jungle
story.
schools.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's stories like these talaga na gusto naming i-share. You have a very exciting life, not just when it comes to building schools in the jungle, but you recently visited Ukraine and then pumunta ka pa sa Africa. So, ang dami natin pwedeng pag-usapan today.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much. After the podcast, there's a lot of traction in social media. And, I wanted to, it's kind of a little project because at first I felt like this is not going to happen. Like no one's going to donate to a random dude in Instagram, And then after the podcast, people have reached out and like 100% funded by social media school. And now we're building to our next school.
Wow.
So now we have 2 schools that is fully funded by social media.
The beautiful power of social media.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I think, I grew up in the church. And so you hear a lot of people, social media is bad.
Right.
Lagi ka lang TikTok, ganyan. And I think that we, sometimes church people, we're guilty of this. We like to curse the darkness, but we need to light the candle. And I think that we need to use our powers in powers or influence in social media for good.
Yeah, pero ikaw, you shine a pretty big candle on these things. Before you guested on our podcast, we didn't even know that these types of problems existed.
Yeah.
So parang sa amin din, like, wow, may mga ganyan pala talagang
Because we live
nangyayari.
in our bubble,
Right?
and when you think podcast guest, you automatically assume like, okay, who's the it girl that you want to feature? But when we
Yes.
guested you, and by the way, you're the only person that we've guested twice on our channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
The first person ever. So Pastor Jasper is with us right here live at the Skypod. Because we had internet problems after Typhoon Odette. So you're our first guest.
So analog
In a
tayo.
long time.
Analog tayo.
First guest also for season 2. A daming
Yes,
first.
right.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you actually opened our eyes to so many other different people that we could talk to about problems like this. Diba? After
Yes.
Pastor Jasper, we're like, we want more real stories like this. Diba?
So after jungle school, you visited Africa in the middle of
Yeah.
COVID?
So I did Israel, and right after
Israel.
that, I went to Africa, and it's like a 6-country tour for around 2 months. And the whole concept of it is I've worked with an organization called Child Impact, and the focus of that is to help vulnerable kids around the world. And so we help build orphanages, schools around the world. And so I was very stoked, And this was the connection, was also social media. They were like, hey, you want to be our field coordinator, capture stories around the world? And I was like, yeah, dude, let's go.
Wow.
And to be able to get free tickets to help build orphanages, right?
Right.
This sounds really good for me. And so after the podcast, I was in the impression that I think I should settle down. I think I should, this is getting old.
May
I'm in the
girlfriend ka na ba?
Wala, still, I don't know if someone wants to be, part of my life. Because if I have a daughter, I probably like, hey, that guy's not for you. He travels so much. And so after that, I was contemplating maybe I should become a pastor again. And so I have calls from San Diego or going back to work in Hawaii. And I was like, oh, this sounds really good. But they called me, like, hey, you want to go to Africa and film these stories? And so I flew there. And there's so many stories. Like in Zambia, we help out with kids that are being sold to brothels. Literally, this year, we're praying that we can get like mercenaries from Iraq, the mga retired, and we can organize a team that would literally bust brothels and get underage girls away from it and send them to schools.
When you say girls, how old are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about 12 and to 18, very young. And there's some towns in Zambia that kids will go to truck drivers and because of poverty, right? They go to these truck drivers and they sell themselves as prostitutes. Really,
like, wala
really
silang
bad.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how do you get to dive deep into these issues wherein meron ka bang journalism background or like when I travel, never talaga namin makikita to. Like how do you, hey guys, I want to visit somewhere dangerous or I want to visit somewhere na meron akong maitulong or where I can shed my light. How do you?
That's a good question. I think that when you stop being a tourist and live with people, you start seeing stories.
Right.
And when you stop considering people as projects and, okay, I'm here and I'm going to do this and that to help, but just see them as people, you hear stories from them. And I think that, and I'll say this, I think Africa is like the poster child of every UNICEF, everything. Like, this is good, right? I'm not disqualifying the work of every American institution or mga institution na malalaki. But I think that Africans, they know that they're posters,
Right.
right? And many people come and they, oh, you need help? Okay, here's money, here's school, but no one's really living with them.
Right.
So the whole concept is, hey, go there for 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it takes, live there and listen to stories.
Right.
So that's the whole concept. And so you hear these stories from them. You can't hear it from them if you just go there for one day.
Yeah.
You literally live with locals. And so I try to live with the Maasai. I try to live with the tribes people. I was makita mo talaga yung stories. Like, for example, I'll give you a little story. In Kenya, they have a friend of mine runs this orphanage, and it's called Omalaika Trust. And it's focused on rescuing girls that were undergone FGM.
What's that?
Female genital mutilation.
Why?
And
yes.
it's female circumcision.
Why would that happen?
FGM is a rite of passage for women. So, for example, as young as 10 years old, they get circumcised. Their clitoris are cut off. Now it's going to be rated R. No, this one.
Okay.
So I hope this is fine.
Go.
So their clitoris are cut off. And so that sensation for sexual sensation is gone, right? Tapos, it is cut. Tapos, no anesthetic. Ang alam mong ginagamit, blade or yung if you open a can, di ba, it's sharpened. And then that's what they're using. And you know what they do? They wrap the kids' arms like that, the elbow together. Tapos yung knees like that, and it's wrapped too, restrained. And then they cut the clitoris off. No anesthetic. And then sometimes girls bleed to death.
But
oh my God.
what's the whole point? Why is it part of the
It's a
culture?
cultural thing.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, a rite of passage. And guess
To
what? This is a
remove the-
shocker. The Philippines do it too.
Ooh.
No way.
Yeah, in Bangsamoro population,
Ah,
they do it
yeah.
as a rite of passage too.
Wow.
my
I just
God.
recently knew about this. And there's like at least 35 countries around the world that does FGM. But no one talks about this.
Wow.
And you
That's
see
crazy.
kids. Oh, you see kids as young as, 10, 13. And you see them beautiful, smiling, ganyan, di ba? But deep inside, they have a scar that they'll always remember.
Yeah.
So, a friend of mine, they rescue them. Tapos, they're providing for their needs from when they found them until university. So, there's some kids have already graduated, has gone through FGM. And so these things I want to shed a light na, like, why are we not talking about this? There's so many kids that are going doing these are illegal, by the way, now. But people are still doing it.
When you say you have a friend that rescues them, as in, kinukuha sila from their families, tapos...
Yeah, so sometimes we take them out from their families, or sometimes you'll see them in the streets. They run away. Before the ritual, they would maglaya sila.
So they know.
Yeah.
Do they know it's illegal? Alam
I
ba
don't
nila?
know if they know it's illegal, mga kids. But I'm sure because, in Kenya it's illegal. Tapos it's so crazy because they'll bleed to death, right? And they'll just put sugar and spoiled milk.
Oh my God.
Para yun yung medicine.
To stop it's so messed up.
There's no medical anything about
there's no
it.
medical, and also I want to say there's no medical benefit with female circumcision.
Right.
Like to take away the sexual feeling is so wrong. So think about that, right? Before that kid gets married off, and sometimes to an older person, like 70, 60 years old, marrying a 14-year-old kid.
Oh my God.
Right? Wala na sila. They have no sexual feeling, and so they're just an object.
Right.
It's so sad. And so we're helping these people, and we're helping organization like Omalaika. Omalaika actually means angel in Masai. So it's interesting. So little angels, they're providing.
See, that's
for them.
crazy because Slater and I, we went to Africa for our honeymoon. We went with the Maasai, but never heard the story ever.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and we're like, oh my God, I love Kenya. It's so cool here.
yung
The
story
Maasai, they're
namin
so
na parang,
friendly. Like,
ang ganda talaga. Oh, you have to visit it.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
so that's why I encourage people. You need to go beyond being a tourist.
right.
And I love tourism. I went to safari too.
Yeah.
And also, I think this is a good opportunity to plug in my friend that runs Omalaika. If you go to Kenya, just hit me on Instagram, and they have an orphanage there, and also they have a safari tour. And so when you join their safari tour, it helps the kids.
Oh,
So
that's
Omalaika
great.
Trust. And so if you want to go to safari
Yeah.
and you want to see the kids and interact with them, you go to Omalaika and you have a safari plus you have education about FGM.
That's amazing. We're gonna put all of the links
The
to
links, yeah, we'll
in
ask
the
you for the
description,
links
so
then,
you guys
we'll
can
put it.
you guys can check out the description for more details.
Yeah, pero grabe. And because I know your journey, snippets of your journey, because you posted on your Instagram, which is at Pastor Jasper,
Yeah.
right?
PSTR, Jasper.
PSTR
It's a
Jasper.
code name. You should not. It's not supposed to be
PSTR.
PSTR Jasper. De, pero si Chris yung nag-update sa akin, you know where he is right now? He's in Africa.
You know where
He's
Jasper
saving
is?
children.
Yeah. And then, ano pa yung sinabi ko sa'yo? Yung Ukraine.
Oo.
Diba? Yung mga kids na
Wait, so
sinabi mo.
after Africa, you went to Ukraine right
Yeah.
away? Or
So after Africa, I went here to the jungle school again. I always go to
Right.
the jungle school. And right after that, I went to Ukraine.
and then, wait, dami mo kasi.
Yeah, I'm also confused right now. I'm
living
thinking about-
vicariously through you. So he's confused because of all your
No,
travels.
Ako mahilig ako sa Discovery Channel. Alam mo yung mga, please don't tell my mom where I am. Parang, ano yung mga, or like mga, there was this show dati na magpapahuli talaga siya sa mga drug dealers, mga ganyan.
Right.
So you can know about the underground
So feeling
world.
mo ganun si
So
Jasper.
it's kind of like that. Because you actually went to Ukraine right after Africa.
Yeah,
And that was at the peak of the war.
yeah, like
The war just started.
Yeah.
2-3 weeks after like they
They
bombed
started.
Kiev area. Yes,
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing there?
Yes.
Get out.
And why? What? Tell us the story of why that happened.
right. So I opened it up to my my team sa US. It's like, hey, you guys want to go to Ukraine? And no one wants to go. And I was like,
Syempre, girl.
but I'll go. I'll go. You guys, buy me tickets and all that. So they flew me. But in Germany, we support a group, and this mattress company in Germany, super big mattress company. And in Germany, by the way, in Austria, shout out to them. They're like the most active in helping refugees since
Nice.
Afghanistan, Syria, and all that. They're really open. But anyways, this group of people, they opened up the opportunity to help out refugees. And so this group of church people, they're like, a friend of mine, Johan, really interesting story, and I'll tell you more about him later. But anyways, he has a bus. What he does is he buys buses in Germany, old buses, sells it to Romania. That's his business. Right?
Okay.
And so what he did was he carried buses and he brought it to the Romanian border with Ukraine. Tapos yung idea is, why don't we punuin natin
Ng tao.
we fill with food from Germany. We fill it up with food from Austria and Germany and send it to the Ukrainian border. From the Ukrainian border, Ukrainians will come and pick it up and bring it to Ukraine. That was the whole idea. And Johan said, okay, sure, let's bring it. Puno yung bus, super big. Yung mga series bus na super big, super puno. He came into Ukraine, he saw kids coming in. And by the way, no one's talking about this. We also talk about war, but in Ukraine, there's a lot of human trafficking.
Okay.
So I can tell you stories of people coming in the border and taken advantage of, and they're being sold or, and kidnapped and becoming sex slaves.
my
These are
God.
true stories, and you can see the statistics, right? And so he sees people being taken advantage of, family. And just to put a little disclaimer here, if you are an older gentleman from 17 above, you're not allowed to go out of Ukraine. So by law, because of the martial law, you have to stay by.
You have to fight.
You have to fight. You have to help out. Unless if you have 3 kids or more, so you can go out. But if not, that's why if you go to the border, it's all single moms. Walang father. It's just
God.
mothers carrying their children. And so they're very vulnerable, right? And so Johan saw that and he was like, dude, what are we gonna do with these people now, right? He was like, you know what, let's bring them to Germany. And he called the Germans and he was like, how many can you accommodate? And the Germans were like, bring as much as you can.
Nice.
We filled it up with people, bring it to Germany. And the foam mattress company, they made it ang showroom nila, ginawa nilang refugee center.
Oh my God, ang bait.
wow.
Crazy. And this is just a small scale. There are people who are like Train of Hope. They welcome 1,300 refugees a day since the war started.
That's
These
amazing.
people are just welcoming people. And the drive is, alam mo, drive from the border to Germany is 30-hour drive on a bus.
Oh my gosh. If you guys want to hear the full episode, you can.
Check us out on Spotify.
Spotify.
It's free, guys. It's free.
See you there.
Skypodcast.
Skypodcast.